Джек, мы едем к тебе в гости. Готовься, будем брать у тебя интервью. Я шеф Вадим, президент Самар и организатор будущего события. Сейчас находимся в гостях около Майами у великого человека, придумавшего такие технологии и термины, как позиционирование и дифференцирование. Технологиями которого пользуются такие компании, как Procter & Gamble, General Electric, Apple, IBM, Audi и многие другие. Имя этого человека Джек Траут, и это, наверное, один из самых известных и успешных экспертов по бизнес-стратегиям и маркетингу в мире. 16 марта 2000 года Джек Траут пройдет в Москве 5-часовой семинар и поделится с российскими бизнесменами всем своим опытом и разработками, которые он накопил, сформировал за эти годы. Мы, Алексей Сухенко и Вадим Ширеев, собрали в России и привезли. Здесь проводим сейчас несколько дней совместную работу над российскими кейсами, которые лягут в основу будущего выступления. Выступление Джека Траута будет строиться именно на современных российских кейсах. Но я думаю, не обойдется без примеров из Индии и Китая, которые очень близки нам. Я думаю, Джеку будет что рассказать про эти страны, потому что за прошлый год он очень много консультировал, делал решений в этих регионах.
Why positioning now is very important?
Well,
they should know.
Positioning is the foundation for strategy. It is the basis for how you compete, how you deal with change, and how you market in a world that's been hit by this financial crisis. It's probably more important today than it was when I wrote the book in 1980.
Джек, скажите, пожалуйста, что вы нового расскажете сегодня в России и чем ваше выступление отличается от предыдущих?
Well, I would say that there'll be a lot more Russia in this presentation than we've had in the past. These are projects and things that I've worked on, some observations I'm going to make about other companies and what they're doing here. So I would say that you'll be able to revisit a lot of the important principles. I'll be talking about repositioning, which is a new book of mine, which deals with how do you market really in a world of competition, change, and crisis. And I've Russianized it a little bit, so you'll have a little bit of local flavor, shall we say.
Jack, you have lots of companies from Russian region. They are middle company or small business. Can they use your technique, your way, positioning in their development?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the body of work that I have developed over these years is good for big companies, it's good for small companies, it's even good for tiny companies. In other words, the principles can be applied to just about any kind of business that you're in. The difference between the big companies is they have bigger problems, they have bigger competitors, and they have lots of money. Smaller companies have to deal with less resources. But the principles that I talk about are universal. They cut across all categories, whether it's from computers to caskets, as I like to say.
The competition doesn't mind, but they don't know probably what to do when they export their goods. They cannot know.
Look, the world is becoming more and more competitive. And if you can get by with just who you know, fine. That's the old world. But what's happening all around the world is essentially people are beginning to understand that it's a competitive world. And that's what the global economy is all about. You have competition. And what I'm about is teaching people how to operate and cope with competition. And that's what I'm about. Now, if you happen to be a little time capsule and nothing is changing and you don't figure it'll change in 20 years, yeah, you know, I probably shouldn't come. But that's not the way the world is going right now. It is becoming a more and more competitive place.
Even in Kazakhstan?
Anywhere around the globe. I've been in Sri Lanka. I've been in places where you say, my goodness, and yet that's what's happening. Well, one of the things I'm going to talk about in my presentation when I come to Russia is what I call the tale of two countries. I find that there's an interesting parallel between what's happening in China and what's happening in Russia. Both countries are really trying to become more market-oriented. Obviously, they're different places with different cultures. But I saw a very interesting parallel in that I think that the Chinese are really aggressively pursuing positioning and repositioning. And I think are using it as the foundation upon which to build new brands, whether it's domestically or internationally. And they're way ahead of Russia, who is not, from my experience, is still not yet comfortable with some of these important principles that I'm talking about. So I think I'm going to draw that parallel between these two countries. And I think the people in Russia will find this very interesting to see what the Chinese are doing right and they're doing wrong. That's going to be the main comparison. I can certainly talk about other countries, India and other places where I spend a lot of time. But I really think the parallel between Russia and